Hello and welcome to Money 2020 Hindsight, the least you need to know in fintech today. I'm Nick Holland, Global Head of Research with Money 2020, and today we're going to talk about China's digital wallets, checkout-free stores, the fintech disconnect that's going on, and of course, the money shot. Pew, pew. But first, let's start, as we always do, with Money 2020 Hindsight, the number of the day. So, hey, Mickey, over to you.
Nice to see you, Nick. So my number of the day today is 261 million.
All right, so that's a big number. What is that?
So that number is the number of times China's digital yuan wallet has been downloaded. So it accounts for about a fifth of the country's population. And it's been used in total for transactions worth up to 87.5 billion yuan, which is around or close to $14 billion. And it's been in development since 2014. The ECNY wallet underwent extensive field search and testing across the country before it was added onto the iOS and Android stores at the beginning of the year. And while the program is still in its pilot phase, take-up has accelerated in recent months. That's according to Zhao Lan, who is the head of the financial markets at the country's central bank, the People's Bank of China. And the wallet is now really starting to catch up with China's dominant commercial payment apps from Ant Financial and Tencent, which collectively account for 94% of the digital payments marketplace in the country.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, a couple of things as well. I mean, obviously, we're not long back from Amsterdam, and there was various conversations around CBDCs. But it's interesting just to see the level of adoption that we're getting in China for their own digital wallet for their currency. So I mean, it can work, I guess. I think we've seen a lot of science projects. You know, we saw there was a discussion about sort of the UK, don't call it CBDC, but the UK digital pound. Again, a lot of the discussions at the show seem to be almost, I guess, science project type discussions, sort of, looking at the early stages of adoption. But I mean, China's really gone for it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think China has really kind of taken the lead on this, as you said, because I think a lot of central banks, and we saw this in Amsterdam too, are starting to jump on this. But China has, as the story highlights, they've been doing this for a few years now. And that they've got a head start.
It's always staggering as well. I mean, just the level. I mean, I guess it's to do with obviously the size of the population means that adoption is, even at a small percentage, is massive. But I think it was back in 2016. It was the sort of the red envelope Chinese New Year tradition. I think it was like 8 billion of them were sent over WeChat. It's just, again, the magnitude of things there. But like I say, I mean, it's been a big topic of conversation at the Money 2020 Amsterdam. But again, like I say, a lot of it is in sort of the project/concept stage at this point in time. Got some other stats here, actually, which I thought was interesting. I've been to a couple of these stores myself, the Amazon Go store, so you can just sort of walk in and stuff. But according to stats from the retail banking research, we're looking at checkout-free contactless stores increasing. It's not a very great increase. It increased from 87 in 2020 to 252 in 2021. But the estimate being by 2027, there's going to be 12,000 of these. And I think they're interesting when they're kind of full of technology that make you, basically you're walking into a vending machine and they've got sort of AI and computer vision and weight sensors and smart carts and all these things. You kind of wonder though as well, Mickey, it's like, we saw this in Amsterdam, it's the sort of the hotel shop, it's kind of almost like a sort of a trust system. And I just can't see certain places where this would work. And I'm not going to disparage my fellow countrymen in England, but I can remember seeing some kids hoofing a robot delivery service into the River Thames after they'd broken into it. So I think there's this idea of sort of electronic honesty, and this maybe the perception of being looked at is enough to prevent what they call shrinkage. I think there's certain places where this will just be sort of a shoplifter's delight.
I agree with you. I guess that's going to be the big challenge, right? But we'll see how it develops over the next few years.
Yeah, so why we can't have nice things? It's kind of the boaty McBoat face of retail, perhaps. Anyway, Mickey, moving on. Tell me about e-commerce players continuing to NFTs. I mean, again, NFTs. There was only one session actually about NFTs in Amsterdam, but it was packed. So I mean, it's still very interesting to people. But tell us about what eBay is doing in space, right?
Yeah, so eBay's done something quite interesting given the context of the wider market for cryptos and NFTs. So they've decided to, and they've acquired a UK-based NFT marketplace called Known Origin, and it kind of just really cements their push into the NFT space. We don't know any kind of financial details of the acquisition, but this is the second time in the last couple of months eBay has moved into the NFT space. I don't know if you remember, but back in May, I think it was, they launched their own hockey NFT collections with the NFT company One Off. And I think one of the things that's interesting for me is it's not just eBay that's done this. Shopify yesterday announced that they're also working with NFTs in a bid to kind of, I guess, leverage them to unlock special products and perks for customers of their merchant stores. Yeah. So while we are seeing the NFT and the crypto space appear to be in the winter, as we like to call it, the e-commerce companies, I think they continue to bullish on it.
I think it's interesting. I mean, again, NFTs are, I think, people assume that we're just talking about Bored Apes or whatever, but there's actually probably a lot more versatility to what an NFT will actually be as that evolves a little bit. But yeah, onto the crypto and fintech winter, or maybe finter, as we should call it, in terms of the portmanteaus our industry loves. That is terrible. So Mickey, you wrote a blog recently based on your observations at Amsterdam, but also it's kind of like, again, I mean, Amsterdam was a massive success as far as we were concerned. It was a huge event, like thousands of people turning out. It was great to, obviously be shaking hands with people in the real world and just sort of obviously networking and doing all the fun things again. But it was like, that was our prom party, but in the background, there was clearly a lot of news going on in the industry around, valuations and layoffs and all that other stuff. So it was it's almost schizophrenic. So Mickey, tell me about the blog you wrote about it.
Yeah, so I think, literally as you mentioned, Amsterdam Festival was a great show. It was amazing to access all of that content, meet so many people. And obviously that show happened at a time when the macroeconomic conditions around the fintech industry, but also the wider economic climate is pretty tense right now. And if you remember, the show was bookended by two pretty notable announcements from very, very big fintechs. So prior to the show, Klarna announced a pretty large layoff, something like close to 20%, if I remember, and right at the end of the show, Coinbase announced something similar. Right. And, I think in the show as well, we definitely heard a lot of leaders of some of the biggest companies speaking about this. So the Stripe CEO, John Collinson, spoke about the challenges of valuations in the current climate. Likewise, the UK-based fintech Zopa was, they mentioned that the possibility that they might have to delay their floating on the public markets given the sentiments right now. But I think, and while everyone is discussing the challenges for fintech and the wider economy, but there was also some news during the show that highlighted that the challenges are not the same for everyone across the board. Yeah. So Backbase, for example, announced a pretty large fundraise, $125 million, valuing it at over $2 billion. At that time, suggesting that while there is tightening in terms of funds available and capital available for the space, players who are doing infrastructural work appear to be protected a bit more than the other players.
I would agree as well. I mean, and again, there's what's the saying? There's no such thing as an ill wind, or there's always some benefit to somebody, no matter what the market conditions are. And I think certainly cloud players in RegTech seem to be obviously sort of bubbling to the surface here as probably a huge opportunity for them as the regulatory landscape changes. I want to bring in my guest Rachel Morrissey as well. Rach, please join us. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you
How you doing, mate?
guys?
So, Rach, I mean, we had a great time in Amsterdam, and you were, I
We
mean,
did.
I was holed up in the exchange with strobe lights and people in.
You were. I got to visit you a couple of times. It was
but
great.
you were similarly holed up. You were, you had
I was in our
lovely
podcast
time in your
booth.
podcast booth. So, let's, move to the money shot segment of our discussion, where we talk about, the key issues that we saw there. And I mean, again, talking about this disconnect that we saw. I mean, there was, we had I did a session with you again, lurking in your podcast booth, which had a roof on it, which is, I think, thank God for that, Rach, because that was like one of your key requests, right? But we had JB Graftio, who is the CCO and European CEO of Bitstamp, and we discussed a new report that they put out, and it was, Rach, maybe talk me through some of the things that the report highlights, if you would.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting was he was talking about how resilient and how much trust they still the basic consumers had in crypto. Yeah. And it was kind of a disconnect for us, because we were witnessing crypto, tornadoes at nicest way to put it. And meanwhile, the research is saying that actually there was quite a bit of trust still and faith in the nature of the crypto markets, the crypto system. One of the things that you pointed out, I remember, is you were talking about how in emerging markets, there tended to be more trust than in some of the more developed economies.
Absolutely. And I think it's all to do with your lens on what a currency looks like. I mean, again, if you're sitting in sort of El Salvador, maybe Bitcoin does look a little bit more legit than the local currency. But
and if the local currency isn't that stable to begin with, if you're not used to your local currency being stable, then maybe the volatility of a crypto doesn't really faze you.
Right. I mean, it was a big, I remember that. I mean, it's a survey they do regularly, and I was impressed by the sample size. It was in the range.
It was huge.
Like 25 to 30,000 people, and it was truly global. So I guess it representative of the the diaspora of users of currencies out there.
I did have a question though. What do you think about the nature of some of these exchanges? Because Bitstamp is an exchange, right? It's like Coinbase. It's like, and they're a very stable exchange. They work with a lot of institutional investors as well as a lot of consumers. And I'm wondering a little bit, we have had this discussion about the exchanges having their valuations include their investors' capital,
right?
And maybe that your investment is wrapped up in the stability of the exchange. Yeah. And I was wondering, what do you guys think about the nature of that? Like, does that weaken the nature of the market in general? Because so far, it just looks like it's attached to the regular markets.
Well, I mean, personally, I think Brian Armstrong said that quite a bit out loud the other week, didn't he? Which was effectively that you've got, basically your money is ours if we go belly up. And I think the hallmark of Coinbase and Bitstamp has been not only their longevity, but their ability or their willingness to become regulated and do the right things. And then you open the kimono a little bit and you find out, well, hang on, so my money's actually your money now. So little bit discomforting for, I think, a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I wonder a little bit about the investor model. And I think this is where I think regulation is going to come take a bite out of crypto. Yeah. I think that because he said the quiet part out loud, they're going to be going, that's not your job. And that's going to really change the nature of valuations of these exchanges.
And like I say, I mean, there is no FDIC for crypto, right? I mean,
not yet.
You can't, but the thing is, I mean, can you have it both ways, I think is the question. I mean, can you be sort of this, a narco currency that's unimpacted by whatever's happening in the rest of the world? Clearly not really. I mean, again, if we've seen obviously the price of various cryptos in the last week or so losing a significant amount, all tied obviously to the what's happening with the Fed and the potential for the market being overheated, and then in the macro level, you've got clearly all the big tech is imploding in a lot of respects. So you're not untouchable in crypto. You're not working in a vacuum. although you
No,
might think you are.
and I wonder a little bit about the nature of institutional investors finally coming in, kind of declaring crypto a little bit safe, feeling like it's part of their diversification. And then it's inevitably tied to the nature of the markets because it's got the same investor base. It's got the same people running. I'm like, this was almost an inevitability. And I wonder a little bit about, I mean, we were talking earlier about the mimetic nature of this. No wonder there are Bitcoin purists because there's so many coins that are so influenced.
Frivolous, maybe.
Yeah. I was trying to be nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mickey, what about you? Any thoughts on this? Because again, you've been, very close to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with both of you. I think Rachel made a really good point about the valuations, because I think we expect the normal investment or investment companies some type of segregation of accounts. And that shouldn't really determine your valuation, right? So you could have $1 billion in AUM, doesn't mean you're $1 billion company. So I think those are where the kinks are in the crypto space. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's still. I mean, let's face it as well. It's still an emerging industry. I mean, it's only been around.
Yeah,
decades.
Still the Wild West. Yeah.
So anyway, we'll leave it there. Obviously, we'll catch up again in the not too distant future.
Thanks, guys.
Great catching up with you, Rach. Absolute pleasure in Amsterdam, apart from getting the inevitable COVID, which is,
I got sick too, and I didn't even get COVID. So yeah. But
again, I said our inability to deal with any germ from being hermetically sealed for the last 2 years.
Re-emerging into humanity. We'll get there.
Yeah. Anyway, so thanks, Rach. Mickey, as always, thanks for being my co-pilot. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, folks. This has been Money 2020 Hindsight, and I'm Nick Holland. Bye for now.